Hello friends, thank you for joining another video of Coding with Tapas. So today we are going to talk about an exciting topic. It's about Git. So we will learn about Git. We will demystify certain heavy jargons that we use with Git, and it comes with Git usage by default. Today's video is targeted for the beginners to Git. So if you're just getting started with Git and trying to use, or if you're confused with certain jargons, terminologies, this video is for you. So please stick to it and enjoy the video. So before we get started, I would like to request you to subscribe to this channel so that you get updates on my future videos. And you can also post your request if you are looking for a new video. You can do that just by going to this repository and file a new video request from here. You will find the link to this repository along with the description of this video. All right, so let's get started. So one of the problem that a beginner to Git faces is like there are lot of such terminologies and the jargons get used. Those makes Git looks very difficult. Some of this are here. It not only makes folks confused, it also makes folks a bit reluctant to try out things on their own. They try to use a lot of tools, a lot of graphical user interfaces to get rid of this problem, but whenever there is a real situation arises that they have to resolve certain merge conflicts, or they have to rebase, or they have to do some cherry pick, I guess they just get stuck. You would have noticed, like in last 15 seconds, I have used at least 4 such jargons that are listed in this particular screen. So in this video, we are going to demystify these jargons and going to make it easy for you so that next time whenever you hear them and you have to use them, you are in a super confidence. So in this video, as I'm keeping it for beginners, we may not get into all the terminologies that are listed here, but we'll get to the most of them. So I'm going to talk about all that are in bold in this video, and the rest of it which are in the lighter color is coming in the next video. That will be for Git for a little bit advanced topic. Hope you enjoy it and learn something from it. So if you have any comments or anything, please feel free to provide that in this video. All right, so what are we going to start with? We are going to start with understanding something called version control. The term version control means that there is something, tool or methodology is there to provide a version of the document that you are modifying and keeping a track of the modifications that you are making. Let's talk about a scenario. Like you are changing a file, you're making a modification to a file, and then you save the file and went home from your office. Next day, when you resume your work, you know, and you started the file modification again, but in the meantime, your friend would have modified this particular file. Now you are completely unaware that your friend have done this modification, and now your next day's modification is on top of his changes without knowing what kind of changes that person has made. So there is a high chance that you are going to override your friend's changes, or at the end of the day, the content of the file would be something that you won't be expecting. Now, how about there is a system or there is a mechanism and tool that is going to keep track of each of the changes being made in this particular document. It can track who is making this change, at what point of time, what is the reason of this change, so that whenever someone is resuming their work, they can clearly say what is the point they are starting with. In case of problem, they can actually roll back to a particular portion, they can roll back to a particular section in the history. It shows all the history of the changes in this particular document. That's where version control comes into picture. So today, while we are talking about Git, you all have to remember that Git is a tool which actually facilitate all the things that is required for a version control system to work. So it is a version control tool. Now, version control and Git, after these two terminologies, if the next terminology that you hear around this topic is repository. Uh, some of the folks also call it repo, as a shortcut. So the repository or repo is nothing but a place where you keep your files and folders that are supposed to go through changes, that are supposed to go through modification. Now, as developers, we'll be talking about mostly the source code files, not any other files. But in a practical scenario, you can keep every file that are there on your hard disk into a repository, and you can create a repository of files. So the main purpose of the repository is to hold the files and the folders so that we as developers in our team can make a copy of those files and folders from the repository into our local hard disk, make a required modification to those files and folders, and then once our job is done, we can give it back to the repository again so that somebody else can start working on those files. Now, the repository is usually not going to sit locally on your computer or your laptop. Usually, it will be sitting somewhere in the remote, but you will always have a copy of it in your local computer. The purpose that a repository sit in the remote because you work in a distributed environment. You are not the only person probably going to work in a project. There will be co-developers, there will be testers, there will be people who are making documentation changes. They all are part of it. There are designers, right? They are all part of it. So they have to take the portion of the code that are there in the repository into their local disk. They have to make the changes, and then once the changes are done, they have to finally give it back to the repository. I hope you understand the concept of repositories now. We'll explore much further. Next thing, GitHub. Whenever we are talking about Git, I think this particular terminology always come into picture, GitHub. And many of us think Git is just equals to GitHub, but that's not the case. Git and GitHub are not same. Git is a version control tool which is going to help you with the versioning and all other attributes of version control mechanism that we have discussed. Whereas GitHub is a company which facilitates a lot of integrations with Git. Now, you can always work with Git without GitHub because there are other vendors and providers like Bitbucket, things like that. But GitHub really cannot work without Git, right? So that's a differentiator factor that you need to keep in mind. And whenever somebody talks about Git and GitHub synonymously, please correct them that they are not the same. Great. So now what we are going to do is, like, as you understand Git, GitHub, version control system, repositories, I think it's time that we see things in action and try to learn some of this command and then go for practicing. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to my desktop and the command prompt to get started with things. First, let us get started by installing Git. Now to install Git, you have to go to this particular URL. You can find this URL in the description of the video, and then you can actually install the Git based on the operating system that you are on. I'm on Windows and I have already installed Git. So I get Git. Along with that, I also get a command line interface called Git Bash, which is over here. So if you open up Git Bash, it's a simple command line, simple looking command line tool, which is very, very powerful. And we'll be doing all the Git related interaction using this tool. Now here, one thing I would like to mention that apart from Git Bash, there are many other tools that are existing today to interact with Git. There are a lot of graphical user interfaces where you don't have to touch the command prompt at all. There are a lot of extension available with your favorite code editor and the IDEs, like with Visual Studio Code, there is one. You can use all of them, but I would strongly encourage you to start using command prompt or the CLI tool first and then go to the other user interfaces, specifically for two reasons. One, there are plenty of very good tutorials and the videos out there on the internet. Every tutorials or most of the tutorials or the videos that you will look into, they would have explained things with the command line interface, so it will be easy for you to follow. And next thing, whenever there is a real problem with your file and file tracking, the command line is just going to help you. So, in my opinion, using Git command line interface is the necessity, and any other user interfaces or the GUI are just a luxury, right? So we'll just get started with this one. So assume that you have installed Git And then the first command that we are going to try out is to set up things for our environment. Now to set up things, we have to do certain configuration. That's where our first command called Git Config come into picture. You have to tell Git that what is your name, what is the email ID you are going to use. At least these are the information that you have to provide, so that every changes that you make, Git can track properly that who is making this change. The person's email ID and the name is get logged along with the changes that you are making. So that's the first thing that we are going to do now. So what we'll do is the command git config hyphen hyphen global user dot name, and then give your name. Similarly, if you give user dot email, then provide your email ID. So this is going to set your email ID and your name global into Git configuration file. So the next time it is going to attach this information with all the changes that you're going to make. I've already made these changes, so I'm not doing this thing again. All right. So once we have done this change, the next thing that we'll be doing is about creating a repository. Now we know what a repository is. It's a place where you will be keeping all the files, all the folders that you will be making changes, and you want Git to track those, right? So there are two ways that you can go about creating these repositories. One, you create a repository locally. It means in your PC or laptop. And once you've done all these changes, then you can actually push all these changes that you have done to a remote repository, so that somebody else, your colleague or your friend, can again take the changes from this remote repository to their local system and do further changes. That's the first way. Second thing is like how you can do is like you can first create the repository in the remote itself, and then you can use something called clone to clone the repository into your local box and then start using it. We'll see both the ways, but the first that we want to see is like creating the repository locally. So to create the repository locally, you have to use a command called git init. So let us first create a project folder. Let me make a directory called say greetings. Now I will switch to this directory greetings. Great. And after doing that, let me create a file. I will create a file called index.html. So I hope this file has got created. Yes, there is a file got created. Now at this time, if I type any of the git related interaction command, this is not going to work because I have not initialized the repository into this particular folder yet. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do git init. Once I do git init, I will see that there's a message called initialize an empty git repository. There are two things to notice. One thing is I am seeing there is something called master has come here, right? And the second thing, if I go to the folder where I have created this repository, I will see a special folder called .git, a hidden folder got created. I'm viewing that, so you're able to see that. So this .git folder is Git's metadata folder where Git keeps lot of his own information, histories and things like that. In 99% cases, or maybe more than that, you don't have to deal with this folder ever. You will never ever get inside this folder. It is for Git to keep track on things. So forget about this for now. Let's focus on our git command. So the thing that we are seeing here, and this is a master. So what is master? Whenever you create a repository, Git has a concept of branching that we are going to learn in a short while. So whenever you're creating a repository, Git creates a branch called master automatically and provide that to you. The reason a master branch is created because the way that Git works, that the final source of truth of your file or source code or folder should be there in a branch called master. Now all of us doing coding, all of us making changes to the source code is to build something. It could be an app, it could be some service or whatever it is. And we are building something because somebody wants to use it, and that end person is our end user or customer. So we want to deliver the bugs free, more solid, robust version of our application to that end customer. And the delivery mechanism should happen from the master branch. So whenever something comes into master, it means that particular piece of code or the piece of changes would have got tested, would have got validated, reviewed, and then only it has finally arrived to master. So this special branch from where you will be making a lot of these deliveries to your end customers is already created by Git the moment you make the Git Init command. That's why we're seeing the master over here. Great. So the next thing, that anything you are doing with Git, any interaction, you can very quickly actually check that interaction using the command called Git Status. So what Git Status does basically, it's going to tell like what exactly going to happen and what has happened just now with something that you have made changes. So right now it says that I'm on branch master. Great. I have not made any commits. Another jargon we'll learn. There is untracked files, and then you can include using a git add command. All right. So there are few steps for us to send a file from the local repository to a remote repository for others to kind of take that file and start working. The first step is to stage that file. Another jargon. What exactly staging means? Staging only means that the term staging means you are making a file or a change available to add to the Git history. So where Git is keeping all the history of changes, once you stage something, it means that you are adding this particular latest change to that particular history where it can actually bookmark, or it can actually keep a track of it. So right now we have added a file. We have not added any content yet, but we have added a file, and we want to make this file available to our remote repository so that others can make use of it and can make modification to it. So the first thing that we'll be doing for that is to stage, and to do that we'll be using the command git add index.html, which is our file name. Once I do that, my staging is done. How can I check that? Let's do this git status command once. So what we'll see, I'm still on branch master. I still haven't made any commit, but I have staged this file. That's the reason it's saying that to unstage, you can use git rm -- cached to unstage. So now this file is ready to be added to the git history, saying that I have made some changes to this folder. Now to add something to the history of Git, we should use the command called Git Commit. So Git Commit, our next jargon, next terminology, is to add or bookmark or bookkeep any of the changes we are making to a folder and file to the Git history. And to do that, we also have to tell Git why exactly I have made a changes to this particular folder or file. For that, I have to pass a message to the Git Commit command. So let's do that. So let's do Git Commit -m to put the message and put a meaningful message. When I say meaningful message, it means that you clearly tell somebody like why exactly you are making this change. Don't put a comment like, I have made this change, I am feeling lucky and things like that. Put a comment which is really meaningful. So let's say I'll be putting a comment like, fit to indicate that I'm building a feature. If it is a bug fix, I would have put like fix fix. So I'm saying that, okay, I'm building a feature, created the initial blank index file. Okay, if you feel it is little too much to write this, you can create a shortcut. I will say that please change your mind, because you will get a lot of benefit out of it in a later point of time when you are in a bad situation, like why certain files were changed, why I have made this file. You can actually understand from this comment. So let's go ahead and commit it. So I have committed it, and it says that one file changed. The file name is index.html file. So let's do a git status once more now. I see it, there is nothing to commit. So it means I have added to the history. Great, I've added to the history, but I'm still not pushed the changes to remote. Still the changes are with me in my local. Now where is this remote? That's where the company like GitHub, Bitbucket, they come into picture. where they are going to give you a lot of Git integrations and the capability to make you part of the distributed development infrastructure. They will give you a remote repository which you can link with your local repository and can track all the changes that are happening in your local and then push those changes to this remote. Now think about it, somebody else, your friend, can do the same thing, take from that remote repository the version of the change, make modification to it again push it back, and again it goes on, it show on, so on it goes on. So what we're going to do next is like we're going to see GitHub. We are going to create our first remote repository and we'll be able to link the remote repository to this local repository and to track the changes, right? So let's do that. To do that, we'll go to GitHub. You can, if you don't have an account with GitHub yet, please create an account. I have an account, so I'll just go ahead and log in. All right, so that's my GitHub page, so I can see like my profile and things like that. So you can go to repositories and create a new repository by clicking on this new button. So let me give a name to the repository, say greetings. You can give a description of it. You can choose to make the repository public or private. It's up to your choice based on the need. If you want your repository to be available with everyone, make it public. Or if you just want to keep it to yourself, make it private. So I'll just make it private as it is our example repository. So I'll go ahead and create this repository. Once you create this repository, the repository is empty because it doesn't have anything, no file, no folder, absolutely nothing. And it gives you certain instructions. It says that you can actually do Git Init, Git add, Git commit. Haven't we done all this thing? Yes, we just have done it locally, right? So the thing that we want to do next is to associate this remote repository with our local repository. For that, we'll be using this particular command. So let me copy this command, come to git bash and then paste it. So what this command does, it says that git remote add origin this particular repository. So it means that whatever the local repository I have created, now I'm associating this one with this particular remote repository. Whenever you face the term called origin, you can think it actually signifies or indicates remote, the things, the repository that are there in the remote. So that's all. I'm just going to press enter, and what I'm going to see is like this association has been done. Now the final thing that we will be doing is like all the changes that we have made added to the history. I'm going to push this change to the remote repository. So for that, what we'll be doing, git push origin and master. If I press this, what is going to happen is it is going to create this particular file. It is going to push this particular file into the repository that we have just now configured remotely. So let's do this. So it's going to take a while, but it will come back and do it. Yep. So what it's saying is like it pushed the change from local master to remote master. Now if I go to GitHub and just refresh, what I see there is a master branch created in the remote. The index.html file is also there. And if I go, yeah, okay, the file is empty. Obviously, it is empty. Next thing that I can see is like there is one commit. I have made this commit. If I go there, I can see the commit that I have made, the commit message. There is a commit number. We will see in our next video like how this commit number is so very useful to traverse back to history to a particular commit. So all the commits will come over here. Now if I go back to code and click on this particular tab, I see like there's something called branches. Under that we have only one branch, is like called master. So next thing that we are going to talk about is something called branch, like what exactly the branch is. So let's understand the branch concept. Usually you won't be the only person who is working on a project. So there will be multiple people who will be working on the project. You will be making changes to a file. Somebody else would like to make changes to the same file or maybe another file in that particular project. So in that case, everybody working on one master branch is going to create a lot of chaos. That's the reason the branch comes into picture. So we are going to understand this branching now, what exactly the branching means. We have already seen there is something called master where we can make a commit and we can push the changes and we can do this multiple times. In this example, in this particular video, we have seen it once, but we can do it multiple times. Now let's say that you have to work on something very independently and you really don't want that until your work is done, somebody else look into the changes that you are making or get impacted by it. Also at the same point of time, you don't want to, just casually override your friend's work, right? Similarly, your friend is also in the same opinion. She is building something where which is kind of very independent, and she can also kind of going to do the similar way. That's the case where each of you, like you and your friend, both can create the branches. The branches are nothing but the copy of the same code that is existing in a separate track. It is not existing on the master track anymore. So it means that whatever the operations now you perform, like you stage a file, you modify a file, you push a file to the remote, everything is happening to this particular branch. It is never going to happen to the master. You remember, we already discussed that master, the file is the source of truth. That is the place you will be giving the deliveries to your customer. Now you cannot afford the changes in the master to corrupt the files. You can afford that to happen in the branches because you can always discard a branch, you can again create a new, and you can make all the modification. But master is a special branch with which you should not do all these kind of changes. So for this purpose, you will be creating probably a branch from a particular point, and then you will be doing your work, and then you will be asking someone to take your changes and then pull it to master, so that master is now updated with all the changes that you have done. Similarly, your friend also will be doing the same thing. She will be creating a branch, she will keep making the changes, keep committing it, keep pushing to her branches, and finally once her changes are done, she will be asking somebody to pull her changes to this master branch. So at this point of time, the master branch has all the changes that we have made, plus your change, plus her change. So at this particular point of time, master branch is very much updated with all the features that we wanted at that point of time. So I hope you understand the concept of branching now. So we are going to see that in practice right away. All right. So let's get back to our command prompt, the git bash, the CLI tool. And what we are going to do now is we are going to try out the command to create a branch and do things on it. So we are going to make certain modification to this index.html file. Maybe we'll be adding a greeting message, right? So let's create a branch. To create a branch, use the command called git branch and give a meaningful branch name. So that you can identify when there are multiple branches, you can identify very easily like which branch you were working on, right? So I'll keep like add a greeting message. As you notice that every word separation I am making with a hyphen instead of a space, because the branch name that you are making in your remote, like GitHub or Bitbucket, the branch name can be part of the URL to reach that particular branch. Now the URL cannot have space. That's the reason don't put space in your branch name. Please put hyphen or any other character that you want, any other allowed character that you want. So I'll go ahead and press enter. So what it is going to do, it is going to create a branch for me, right? But I don't see any kind of notification that the branch has been created. So what I can do, I can check the branch status with a command called git branch minus a or hyphen a. So what I'm going to see here, like there is a master branch with a star. It actually indicates that I am on the master branch right now. And the next thing that happen is there is a remote origin master because I have created the master, if you remember, in the GitHub, and there is a branch called add a greeting message. That branch also exists here. Now if you notice, just like remote origin master, there is no remote origin add a greeting message. It is because the branch that I have created is just created locally. I have not done anything to push this branch to remote yet. I'm going to do that right now. But before that, I'm still in still on master. So I have to switch myself to this particular branch. So to do that, I can do this command called git checkout add hyphen this particular branch name. So that's going to take me to this branch. So as you see, like I'm switched to the branch, add a greeting message, and this has got changed. Now in Git, there are multiple ways to try out the same outcome. So I have created a branch and then switched over in two steps. First with git branch and then git checkout. If you want this to happen in the same stage, like one single command, you can do git space branch space hyphen b space the branch name. In that case, what git is going to do, it is going to create a branch and automatically switch you with that. So it is the syntax is git branch hyphen v and then your branch name, some branch name that you give over here. All right, so now we are in a branch. So what we're going to do now, we are going to modify this file, make some modification to this. So let's make some small modification to this. Let's go to the folder, open this file once quick, maybe with notepad plus plus for the simplicity, because we really don't want to open VS code and all, because we have to keep the things simple for now. Okay, so what I'm going to do, we'll be adding some simple HTML over here. So maybe a head, and then body, and let's add one very simple greeting message over here in a h1 tag, greeting, and close this h1 tag right away. All right, so this is our simple HTML that we have written. It can be improved, but for our video, this is fine. So this particular file is now modified. So I can do similarly git status. It says the file has been modified. So Git is tracking this file already. Same thing, I have to stage it. It is staged now. It's ready for commit. So I'll do a quick commit to it with a meaningful message. All right, enter. So again, what I have done now, I have modified the file, staged it, add to the history like what kind of modification we have made with the git commit command. I have still not pushed this to master, to the remote. So to do this, what I have to do, same command that we have used before called git push origin, but wait, instead of master, we'll be using the branch name over here, the branch that we are working on. So if we do that, what Git is going to do, it is going to first create this branch on your remote, like for us it is GitHub. Yeah, and we have already associated GitHub with this before. So it is going to create this branch first, and is going to push these changes to this branch. It is not going to push anything to the master. Remember the diagram that we have seen? Master we don't want to touch. We want to keep changing, keep pushing things into our branch, and then we want to request someone to pull our changes from that branch to master. So we are going to see that. So let's push this first. So it is going to push it. Push is done. So it is showing like it pushed a change from this local branch to this particular remote branch. Now let us head over to GitHub. What do we see? We see a notification that a branch has been created called add a greeting message, and there are some changes. You can compare and pull request. Pull request is something which will allow someone to pull the changes from your this branch to master if they are satisfied with the changes. If they are not satisfied with the changes, they can get back to you saying that the reason of the dissatisfaction, and can ask you to make more changes, and then again commit, again push it so that they can review it and then approve it. I used at least 5 jargons again. So first is the pull request, which is also called PR. So we'll first go ahead and create a pull request. Let's go ahead and create a pull request. This is the place where you have to use this graphical user interface than the command line to create this. So I'm going to create a pull request. You can give a meaningful name and a message. And from here, you can add a reviewer. Who do you think can review the code changes and then can approve or ask for more, changes or can comment into it? Then add yourself as an assignee and then create a pull request. Once you create the pull request, you can straightaway see the changes that are being made into this branch under this files change. So once you have created a pull request and added somebody as a reviewer, that person will get a notification, or you can share this URL so that the person can start looking into the changes. Let me pretend to be that person for a moment, and I am getting this particular pull request. So what I'm going to do straight away is I'm going to go to this file change, try saying, okay, these are the changes are made. I can actually make a comment if I'm not satisfied, like, the line comment, clicking here that, hey, can you make this change, blah, 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 and start a review. Or I can go ahead and comment here. I can actually mark it for request for more changes, or if I'm satisfied, I just go ahead and approve. So let's assume that this particular pull request been approved by the reviewer, and then the pull request can be merged. So once we say merge, it means that I am going to pull all the changes from this particular branch to master and see like what are the things happened just before that. Somebody had confirmed that your changes are looking good. Somebody feel really confident about the changes to go to master, from where you will be making a build for your customer. So this merge is safe. Let's go ahead and merge this. The moment I merge this one, so this guy is done. So what I'm going to see is like if I go to code and go to this master branch, I'll be seeing these changes are appearing over here. So now you got the point, like, how different people can create the branches, make the changes, create a pull request, and ask for that pull request to pull the changes from your branch to master. That's the most safest way of working. The next thing that we are going to see here is another very exciting things. We have seen like how one person is working over here, like, creating the branch and pushing it. How about we bring another imaginary character now? So here Tapas created a pull request, push something into the code. Let's bring somebody imaginary, let's say Mr. X. So Mr. X wants to work with Tapas, on this particular project. So what Mr. X has to do? Mr. X has to first get this particular code from the code repository. So for that, the X has to clone this repository. Cloning this repository means you take a copy from this remote master branch to your local hard disk so that you can start working on it. That's what the clone means. So you are cloning this repository. So Mr. X is now going and copying this. After that, Mr. X is going to a directory. Let's say here, create a new project directory for him, say X. Then Mr. X will go inside this particular directory and deal with Git using the Git bash. So open up Git bash over here. So once the Git bash is opened up, what Mr. X is going to do, Mr. X is going to try out the command to clone that repository. To try out that, he will do git clone and the URL that he has copied from the GitHub. So the moment the git clone happen, is going to clone the particular file and the folder and the structure with the current history of all the changes to Mr. X local directory in the X folder. So if I see now, I will see the greeting message. Awesome. So I got the greeting folder. So I go inside the greeting folder. I should see the index.html. And if I go to this folder, I should be able to see the content that is got committed so far, right? So let's open this up. All right. So this greeting content. Now Mr. X wants to make some changes. Like the job for Mr. X is to say, along with greeting, want to append few more messages. Hello from India. So, and Mr. X is going to save this one. But here, is Mr. X doing the right thing? because Mr. X is on master and he started making the changes. What we have told right now, the philosophy is like we won't be making the changes on master. So what Mr. X is going to do, going to create a branch with a branch name, let's say improving greeting message. Now a branch should be created and we can see that quite easily with git branch -a. So you see we are on we are on improving, and as we are on master and we are seeing improving greeting message has been created. Notice one thing. This add a greeting message is now in the remote's origin. Why? Because we have pushed it, right? A while back. But the improving greeting message is not yet there because we have not pushed it yet. So we'll just create it. So we'll switch over git checkout improving greeting message. Yeah. And it says that, okay, I'm in a branch. There is a file which is modified because I have modified that file. And then I will do git status. All right, same thing, stage it, index.html file. Once the staging is done, commit this file with a meaningful message. And finally, what we'll be doing is git push origin where? To Mr. X new branch. That's all. So Mr. X has now created a branch. Before that, he cloned the repository, created a branch, made the changes, staged the changes, added to the history, and finally committed. So a new branch has also got created in the remote. If I go to GitHub now, I will see the notification once again that this is got created. So Mr. X can now create a pull request, can add myself, my another avatar to review this one, and then add himself as assignee and create this pull request. So I come here, I review the pull request, I see the changes and see like I'm satisfied with the changes or not. If I'm satisfied with the changes, I'm just going to merge this particular pull request into master. So now if I go to master code, I should see both the changes, my changes with greetings and then Mr. X changes with hello from India is already there. So this is a great way of collaborating. This is a great way of working together. There are two things that I want to show, the last two things in this video. So one is if you make any further changes, for example, I am just going to make this period sign to this particular exclamation mark and space it and then save this one. Now if I want to see the changes that I have made before kind of creating a pull request and things like that, I can go to the branch and then can do git diff. This command is going to tell me what are the changes that are made into this particular file, into this particular folder. If I mention a file name, git diff a particular file name, it is going to show us for the specific file. So in this case, it is telling that this is a line got changed and I can see this particular period sign has got changed to this one. So this is a very handy one. You can always see, you can always check like what is done. The next thing is Mr. X has done some changes and the changes are done into master. It is there in the master. And Mr. X is done for the day, closing, his git bash, closing his file. Then the next moment, I am coming into picture. Tapas coming into picture and then Mr. X would have done some changes. So Tapas wants to resume his work and what he wants to do is like it's a new work. So he will be creating a new branch from master, right? So what he does is like he check out to master and what he can do, he switch to master. He wants to take all the changes that are done. He can simply do git pull. So the command git pull, what is going to do is going to bring all the changes that are there in your remote to your local directory so that you can start working on the most recent part of it. In a regular practice, in every logical interval, try to do git pull if two people are working on the same branch or you see that other people are kind of merging things so frequently into master, always do try to do git pull before you start working on something, start resuming your work, because that is going to keep you always on the updated code files. So we are going to use git pull right now and see what happens. So look at that. So once I do git pull from master, remote master, what I'm seeing here is like my local branch is now got updated, and the syntax file, HTML file is what is got changed. Now if I come and see my index.html file, I'll see the file is updated with all the changes that Mr. X has made. So this is really great way of pulling things to keep the branch updated, right? So that's something that we should be doing regularly at our work. There is another way that you can keep your code updated or the files updated with the changes from another branch. So git pull is definitely pull from the remote to the local. There is another way that you can do it is by merging the changes from another branch to your local branch that you're working. For that, use the command called git merge and then the branch that you want to merge from. So if I do git merge origin master, so it means in the master, whatever the code are there, I am going to actually get all those commit history along with the changes merged to the code that are there in this particular branch. So if I do that, it is going to merge everything. So you can see that I went to another branch and then did the merge, and it is going to kind of merge the things and make the file updated. So this is another handy command which you can use based on the situation. It is a bit different from pull. Pull is directly getting the things from the remote to the local, and you're keeping the local file updated along with the history from a particular branch like a master branch, and you can kind of pulling it into local. But while working, you can be in the multiple branches based on your situations and the features. What you can do is basically you can always keep your branch code updated from another branch using the git merge command. So that's all in this video that I wanted to convey. There are plenty of other handy commands that you probably have to use, but believe me, 80 to 90% of your use cases to deal with Git will be solved by whatever we have seen in this video. But rest of that 15 or 20% that we have not touched in this video is immensely useful when you are in a deep trouble using Git and change something wrongly in the file. So it is very essential for us to know that 15 to 20% part also. That I am going to cover in the next video. So until then, please take a very good care of yourself. Please subscribe to this channel, like or comment this video, share this video, and if it is useful to you, please let me know. And if you have a new video request that you want to get from me in the area of web development, career building, content creation, please let me know by following the link that is there in the description of this particular video. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for learning this. Have a nice day. Thank you.